Debunking carnivore and raw diets being based on ancient diets and explaining how hunter-gatherers actually ate. So I've been studying hunter-gatherer diets for over a decade as a biologist, and I just published a book about wild plant foods eaten in North America. So recently I've noticed that the internet is full of people who claim that certain diets, because they're ancient or ancestral, are the healthy and right way to eat. But most of these people have no idea what they're talking about. First, hunter-gatherers didn't eat meat raw. What are you talking about? Your disappointment to every one of your ancestors. Prometheus did not steal fire from the gods for you to eat meat raw. What is wrong with you? Cooking is literally the number one thing that makes us human. It is fundamentally what allowed us to get in a huge amount of calories in a short time to feed our ridiculously big brains. You'd be dumber without cooking, though these raw meat advocates are clearly somewhat deficient already. So this book, Cooking Fire, is the best synopsis I've read on this topic. Cooking essentially allowed us to harness external energy sources to pre-process our foods, making them much more digestible and nutritious. And it freed us of parasites and allowed us to make inedible foods edible. The raw diet of any kind, but especially of plant foods, will lead to basically one thing: more effort in digestion for less nutrition. I actually think this, along with the placebo effect, is one reason people become so enamored with this diet. They're finally eating an appropriate amount of food. So they're still overeating in volume, but because the food is less digestible, they feel better because they're not overtaxing their metabolism as before, and probably are losing weight. But it's wasteful and it's an insult to the plants and animals that gave their lives to feed you. So hunter-gatherers universally cooked their food. There were plenty of occasions in which some foods were eaten raw, but these were generally all for expediency or convenience. For example, the liver was often eaten raw because it's one of the first things you remove when butchering an animal. It doesn't preserve well, it doesn't taste much better cooked, so it's just eaten raw. Also, it was common when eating in the field on hunts to kind of only halfway cook their food. Again, out of hunger and urgency. You can cherry pick plenty of examples historically of food cultures eating raw meats, but these are exceptions, not the rule. I feel crazy for even having to convince people that animal food should be cooked. Like, dude, gross. Like, who wants to eat raw meat? And the carnivore loonies saying that plants are toxic are just out of their gourds. Again, cooking allowed us to safely eat plants that can be toxic raw. Hunter-gatherer diets globally generally consisted of about 45 to 65% animal foods, or about half or more depending on the environment. And in a plains or steppes environment with fewer plant resources, more animal foods were eaten. And another thing, since paleo is in my name, I never wanted to make this association with it, but the paleo diet is kind of a joke. It's one of its biggest tenets is no grains, but tons of wild grains were eaten by hunter-gatherers. It was one of the biggest food sources among California natives historically, for example. And also, no legumes is ridiculous. There's tons of wild legumes that were staple foods of indigenous peoples globally. The mesquite in the Southwest is one example, the number one source of nutrition. And even the no processed food, because like, what does that even mean? Pretty much every wild plant food besides like fleshy sweet fruits requires some processing. So one of the things people love to bring up to defend their ridiculous ideology, because that's what it is an ideology, is the decline in skeletal health following the agricultural revolution. And that's true, that happened, but that was because a diverse diet of wild plants and animals was suddenly replaced with nothing but like 70% wheat. Of course it's going to cause developmental issues. Like, these people are really saying because it's since we stopped chewing raw meat. Like, literally no human culture has ever done that as a main food source. So shut up. If you want to have a healthy diet, just have a diversity of whole foods and don't overeat. It's pretty basic, and anyone trying to convince you of some weird new diet fad, just don't listen to them, please. Why are there so many? And if you want to know the real problems with modern diets and how they're actually different from hunter-gatherer diets, follow me. I'll make it in my next video. But short story, diets are far less diverse, the foods are less dense in micronutrients and fiber, and we overeat everything. And since I know I'm going to get this, even though it's not actually an argument against anything I'm saying, I'm healthy. This is me a week ago. I get sick about once every 2 years, and like, I kind of eye circles in my eyes, but they're genetic. I've had them since pre-puberty. It never changed no matter what my diet. And there are too many references to list. basically everything historically corroborates what I'm saying, but I've read hundreds of ethnographies of hunter-gatherers in North America and worldwide. You can see some at paleoforaging.com/references. And if you want my book, paleoforaging.com/shop, or it's on Amazon, Native Food Plants of Texas. All right, y'all, take it easy.